Well, back again. Hello to everyone that is about to tune in, is tuning in, is watching this on YouTube or down the track or right now. Hey Jet, hey everyone that's jumping on, my man. Let me add tonight's guest to this. 1 second here. Here we go. See how this goes. Boom. I agree, Jet. Tell you what, not a great. Hey,
Hey,
what's happening?
not much, man. How you
Hey
doing?
guys, hey Janelle, how you going?
Hi.
Hi to everyone that's jumping on and joining. Welcome. How are you guys going?
Yeah, going good. Going
Yeah.
good.
Going good.
We're at the Christopoulos house.
Yeah.
Daddy's been rocked to sleep by April, so
That's right.
Oh, beautiful.
we're
Beautiful.
off duty.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Charles is just checking here, making sure I'm saying the right stuff.
yeah, he needs to keep you in check. We had that
That's right.
conversation. I'm making. It was actually set up that you'd be there tonight.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
if you are fairly new parents, so if at any point anyone needs to dip to go and help your beautiful baby scout, I am not upset about that at all. You got to go and do your duty.
All right.
That's all right. People seem fairly happy to have a cuddle generally. So,
Yeah. Well,
that's including me. So.
When your baby's that cute, I mean, I don't blame them. But
Well, if you look at me, you can.
That's true.
It's so cute, right?
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, if I was allowed to cuddle you, I guess at the moment I would do so. But it's kind of it's a bit tough at the moment. But I've heard you're good. I've heard you're good to cuddle. So
I'm great to cuddle.
Yeah, that's okay. Fair enough.
I'm trying to refrain here, really. It's just
yeah. You do. You just leave out this one. But thanks for jumping on tonight, and hi to everyone that's jumping on, and everyone that's in at the moment. It's awesome to be able to chat to this awesome couple tonight about missions and about outreach, which when we were putting together tonight's or just the whole Tuesday Chats thing, shout out to Rachel Mason, who is watching now and who's one of the awesome leaders at youth. It was actually her idea to do tonight. There's someone who's really passionate about missions like you guys are. And she was like, you should talk about missions. And I think it's great. I think there's the awesome. And I mean, really, what a week and what a time to be able to talk about missions and reaching people in other countries and things like that, which I'm really looking forward to. So basically, I thought I'll get the experts in to chat about something that I'm not an expert on. But just so these guys can get to know you, Nathan Chanel Flannery, how long have you been married for?
yeah, babe.
We've been married for 3 years.
3 years. Okay, that's good. Go, Nath. It's staying strong. And you have one child so far.
One
Great.
beautiful
How old is baby Scout?
She's 6.5 months.
Oh,
So,
beautiful.
Too old. Growing way too quick.
Growing too quick. Yeah. Are you getting any sleep at the moment?
Not enough.
I could sleep through anything. So
yes, Nathan's getting plenty of sleep.
I believe that.
I'm very well rested. Don't know
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that's great. What about in terms of? I mean, a lot of the time people associate missions with going to another country. How many countries have you been to collectively?
Well, this wasn't on the questions you were going to ask us.
I know.
So time to do the math.
A lot.
Just you can say
upwards of 30, I'd say.
Yeah, upwards 30, 40.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
Between us, probably. Yeah.
It's a lot of traveling.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of traveling. Yeah. There you go. That is a lot. I think I've been to 3, 4, and I consider that to be. I say well done to me, but I've got a bit to go before I get to you guys, to your level.
I've got a few years on you, Dave. So
yeah.
And just got to
surely
find
not
a woman who's also travelled, I guess.
I just hope as the years go on, visiting countries would be great, but I'd like to grow that beard, to be honest. That's my biggest.
Well, he shaved this morning, so.
Yeah, it's growing back, and before dinner
it will
you
come,
shave
David.
Yeah.
Shave it. and it will come.
Yeah, okay. I'll get rid of. I have nothing to show. I'm a disgrace to all Italians.
That's a message to all youth boys. The more you shave, the thicker it becomes, the greater the beard becomes.
Come on, okay, yeah. Get rid of that patchy, disgusting sort of one that grows down the neck.
That's right.
Just
stop having a few wispy mustache hairs.
Shave it off and let it come.
And wait for the day that it becomes full and beautiful.
Brilliant. Yeah. Write that down. Get your notepad out. Write that down. All the lads listening. But let's get into it. Thanks so much for jumping on tonight. Obviously missions and stuff. What about Charles? Thinks it's hilarious. Charles is in the room with you, so of course he does.
He's trying not to laugh out loud, so that's the best thing.
Yeah, that's classic. But what if I can throw the first question out there? What actually is missions? We kind of hear like a lot of churches or youth ministries say, "Oh, like we're doing missions work or we're going on a missions trip." Like, what is it? What is missions?
Yeah, well, the word missions itself doesn't actually ever appear in the Bible. You can't find any place where... Oh, that's my daughter having her interjection there.
Yeah, that's...
but missions itself doesn't appear in the Bible as a word, but it is something that the church has adopted sometime in the 1500s when the Bible was translated into Latin. When the Bible was translated into to Latin, a word missional was used to define sent ones. So like when you read about apostles, when you read about Jesus sending out the disciples, this word was used, and it means to send. So missions is about us going out, being sent by God into the world with the message of the good news. And the good news is that Jesus Christ came to earth, died on a cross, and rose again to bring about forgiveness of sins, to wash us clean from the stuff that we've done, but not only that, to bring life in abundance. So missions really crosses over on those things, where we go out to spread the good news of Jesus Christ, to tell people about who Jesus is and what he's done. But not only that, it is about us going out to bring abundant life to people. So you'll see, missionaries who don't only just go out to tell people about who Jesus is, but to show who Jesus is, by bringing, for a really common example is bringing clean water to villages that don't have clean water, or help eradicate poverty in an area. But that's a witness to who Jesus is. That's a witness to what Jesus has done in us. So really, missions, what actually is it? It's being sent out to spread the good news and the witness of Jesus Christ to the world. That can be in Australia. That can be overseas. It doesn't have to be overseas. Often we say, missions is something that happens, in other countries. And we use it as a bit of a word that just, represents that. Oh, I'm on a missions trip. But really, God's got us on mission every day. When we go to our schools, we're on mission. When we are in a workplace, we're on mission. When we're doing life every day, God sent us out. Jesus sent us out. And so we're on mission every single day.
That's great. That's so good. I love that. It's something that I definitely, like as a young person, when I was like younger, I wish I had probably grabbed onto that a bit earlier and thought, actually, no, my school, my family, my friends, my sporting clubs, my workplace, that is my mission. Like that's a really, just a good way to... Mission does not mean I've traveled on a plane on an overnight flight and stopped in Abu Dhabi somewhere. It means that I'm taking Jesus to people around me. So that's awesome. That's so good. What about Chanel? That's probably the most common question I would get from someone in terms of I know for you, your parents were missionaries, so it's probably the answer there. But like, how do you get into missions? Like, how do you kind of, like, where does it come from? Like, oh, I want to be involved in like a mission or in reaching people.
Yeah, I was very privileged that my family have always sort of lived life in a way that's missional, if I could say it that way. Like, I grew up with my dad doing, barbecues for the homeless down at the beach on the Sunshine Coast.
Wow.
They weren't always involved in overseas missions. That was something that came around a little bit later for us. But I grew up with parents who very literally were the hands and feet of Jesus. They would open their doors to anyone and everyone. We grew up with drug addicts in our house, with homeless people, with people that just needed an extra hand, who needed to see and find the hope that's out there. And I very thankfully had parents who were very willing and excited about sharing the good news that they had with them. So I grew up with that, and that was modeled to me. And I think that gave me an extra probably boost into that arena. I've always had a heart for that stuff. And I put a lot of it down to my upbringing, but I know there's a lot of people who probably haven't grown up in that same way, but I think when you become a Christian as well, there's something inside of you that burns to share with others. And I think that's something that you don't need to have modeled to you from someone else. That comes through the Holy Spirit and the work that he does within us, that actually drives us forward to want to share it with other people. So that's probably the motivating factor, was definitely for me, even with my family history in helping others around. It was definitely my own encounter with Jesus and wanting to share not just the gospel message, but just the life that Jesus modeled was so giving and serving of himself and humbling of himself to care for other people. And that was something that I always wanted to do for others. So I kept my eyes out for anything, even in my local area, that I could be involved with. I think that's always a good place to start, seeing what's in your own local area. I think some people expect that they're going to have this big defining moment if they can just get on that trip that takes them over to another country to see how bad someone else is doing. But trust me, they don't need to have any other people looking down on them and seeing how bad they're doing. And I think often we come in thinking we're going to, fix everything for them, but that's certainly not the way that I've experienced things. But if you can reach out to people in your own community, find someone who just needs a friend, needs some encouragement and that kind of thing. Start there, and that's a really great way to find your feet in opportunities that might pop up for missions.
Yeah. Okay. And I go with that kind of. You go, Nath.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to kind of remember. Like, we're talking about cross-cultural ministry, like being overseas and talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's very tough to do. If you're wanting to share the gospel of Jesus Christ cross-culturally, you should start sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ in our own culture.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to know how to do that unless you're practiced. Yeah, you can hear my baby wanting to have a bit of a input into the discussion.
Yeah, she's just agreeing with you. She's saying amen. She's saying amen, agreeing with you. So
yes, she is.
No stress at all. But
she's actually saying, "I want to have a cuddle."
But yeah, no, I think it's great. I love. I can't remember who said it, but I remember someone preached once and said a quote that I thought was just really cool. It was like, we want to share the gospel to all corners of the earth, but we haven't even shared it in our own backyard yet, which is really, really interesting. So much suffering is going on just even in our nation. So it's important to, like what Chanel said, important to look at what can I do to help my community and my friends and the people around me. So that's great. What about, what's the most impacting thing for you about reaching people, and what do you love about it? Like, what are the things that, is it a bit different to what people think? I think people, like Chanel said, it's, I'm going to have this moment, and I mean, I've done a little bit of it in my lifetime. It's very impacting in a lot of ways I did not expect really to be impacted.
Mm. Yeah. So I think one of the things I really have been impacted by is the knowledge that the church is way bigger than what we think. The
Yeah, wow.
church is thriving and growing around the world. When you think of missions, I think people often think that they're going to go to some remote location like a savannah in Africa. There's going to be, mud huts around, and you're going to be preaching the gospel to people who have never heard the gospel before in their entire life. Now, some missionaries are doing exactly that. But those people live in those places. They learn the language. It's a
Yeah.
long process to get to that point. But the thing that I love about being on mission is, like, in my time in Kenya, for example, the church there is thriving and growing and just impacting massive amounts of people. Being in Egypt, where the church is exceptionally persecuted and has a lot of difficulties, from a societal level and from just a kind of grassroots level. Christians aren't really accepted, but the church is growing exceptionally in that context. In the context of Southeast Asia, seeing the church really explode as well. Some of the biggest churches in the world are in South Korea and places that we wouldn't really expect.
Yeah, wow.
So the church is well bigger than what I thought. When I first went on missions, I had that way of thinking that I was going to be in, total,
Holy Spirit aura.
Yeah, that's right. Like, people really need to hear from me. But when I came back from my first missions trips, I don't think I changed all that many people's lives, but my life was changed. My life was different. And suddenly I realized how important it was for me to be sharing the gospel in my own world. How important faithfulness really was in my own world as well. So, like, thinking through things like, prayer, for example. Some of the most prayerful people I've ever met were in Kenya. Here I am thinking I'm, the great savior or something like that. Like, I'm the person who's going to bring all this knowledge, but I'm the one who actually benefited and grew. Brother Andrew, who started Open Doors. Now, if you don't know who Brother Andrew is, he started smuggling Bibles into Eastern Europe when Eastern Europe was closed. So he went to churches in places like Poland when they had closed borders, when Bibles were limited by communist governments and whatnot. So he talks about presence ministry. Sometimes it's just important to be with other Christians from different cultures, because it increases faith, not only in the people that are receiving you, but in you being there and what you bring back. So your presence in a place can grow you and grow others. We were meant for each other as Christians. So that's a big deal, and something that I think has really changed me personally.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's so good. It is. I mean, I definitely think that that's kind of how it went for me when we kind of went over seas into places like Vanuatu, and you see what people are going through. Like I kind of left thinking these guys will never know how much of an impact they've had on my life.
Yeah.
Like you said, the faith that you is stirred up. It's incredible. It's great.
Yeah.
What about, like, I guess you kind of spoke about a little bit with kind of what the word says about it, but like, why do we hear churches always going on about missions? Or like, why do we hear like, oh, we're going to take an offering for missions, or like, we're going to go on this we're going to outreach here and reach here. And like, what is it that churches are so like in love with missions? Like, why is that?
Because we're in love with Jesus.
That's
I don't
great.
think it gets much more difficult than that.
Yeah.
We're going about missions because we're in love with Jesus. And we want everyone to know the fullness of life that Jesus brings. We want people to understand and grow in the fullness of Jesus Christ. We don't want anyone to live life not knowing who Jesus is. And we want to really make that a core part of the life that we live as Christians.
Yeah.
So churches go on about it because we're all on mission, but we want to make sure that the gospel is going well beyond the borders of what we have as far as engaging with others.
Yeah. It's great. That's so good. But there you go. That's the shortest note anyone's going to write about tonight. Is we go on about it because we love Jesus. It's pretty simple, that one.
Yeah.
What about how do I know that I want to be involved in missions and outreach? And I guess that kind of ties in with someone actually wrote in a question today, which was a really good one, which actually says, how do you understand the difference between when you feel bad for a country or you feel a certain way about something and that like an actual calling to that life?
Yeah. So I think there is a difference between feeling a compassion for a situation, a compassion for people, and feeling a call to a particular place. Now, that's really often difficult to discern.
Yeah.
Because, often the picture that we have of a situation or a place doesn't look like what it is like in reality.
Yeah.
Like I spoke about
So
Kenya
true.
before, and for me, prior to going to Kenya, my picture of it was that of the Lion King, right? I had this picture of savannas and, Rafiki running around and cracking things over Simba's head, and holding Jesus up, I had this really faux picture, like this movie style kind of picture of what it would be like. But in reality, Africa is quickly urbanizing. There's a big cities, crazy roads, and it's a place that I absolutely love, but was far different to what I expected before I got there.
Yeah.
So to discern really what, where I'm called to, or am I called to a particular part of the world, I think you really have to start by deliberate prayer, and I would probably say prayer and fasting. And does this place continue to be on my heart? Do I continue to feel pulled towards this place? Not, I saw a picture of India on Facebook and thought, I think I'd like to go to India, and therefore I have to justify it somehow. So I want to go on mission to India.
Yeah.
No, if you saw India and you want to go to India because India looks cool, just go on a holiday. But if it's persistently on your heart, if it's persistently beating there, and you can feel it burning deep within you in your prayer time, in your fasting,
it's great. It's really good.
I would then not just act on it, but speak to good counsel, speak to a pastor, speak to Charles, yourself, me, whoever it might be, that you trust to give you wise counsel, and sit down and discuss it and say, will you pray about this with me? Ask someone else to sit with you and pray who will give you honest feedback. Now, honest
Yeah.
feedback's a really critical thing. Don't go to someone
Absolutely.
that's just going to be like, yeah, cool, man, let's do it. Someone who will pray with you and think about it with you.
Yeah.
I remember back a few years ago, one of my friends, was a friend now, but was a youth kid. This is back years ago when I was a young pastor. I was a youth kid at the time, wanted to come to Kenya with me on a trip that I was taking. And it was actually in the middle of his year 12 schedule. And
Great idea.
yeah, and his parents were not on board, right? Like totally not on board.
Of course.
And at the end of the day, there was going to be other opportunities for him to outwork and be a part of mission in the future. And he did end up traveling on a missions trip and doing some great stuff overseas. But my advice to him was to wait. Whereas for some other people, my advice to them was, yes, this sounds like something that is on your heart, and I'm feeling it too, that it's a good choice. I think it's something you should work towards. I think there's wisdom in the counsel of many. We can get deceived by our own heart, but when someone else is praying with you, when you're getting wisdom and counsel from many people, you're actually going to be able to discern more and more whether or not this is something that is really from God. You don't want to go on missions if it's not God ordained, right? You don't want to just go because it sounds like a good idea. You want to go because it is what God wants you to be doing.
Yeah. That's right. Write that down. Whoever's watching, write that down. Facts. What about if if like a young person in particular, I mean, I'm probably not that different in terms of being strapped for cash or something. If I can't travel and I don't have much money in terms of like giving or being able to sponsor or give to charity or anything like that, how do I get involved in reaching people, being sent to reach people?
Yeah, Chanel would actually have some great perspectives on this, but she's in the other room caring for my screaming baby, which you all may have heard. I've got a little Italian girl. I'll just divulge for a second.
Go for it.
She's super loud, man. She like screams like a pterodactyl all the time. Just wants to talk all the time. I also really like death metal music, and really into heavy metal. So I think she thinks that's a lullaby and just kind of imitates. But anyway, it's a whole thing. We'll get back onto the question. I'll remind you of what the question was. Like, if you don't have much money, you don't have much resources, and you can't travel, how do you support missions? Well, it sounds like a real cliche, but start with prayer. Really start with prayer.
Right.
And what a really good way to start praying is deliberately, not just ad hoc, kind of every now and then going, and I pray for missionaries that they do well. Not that's a bad thing that you're praying for missionaries to do well or whatnot, but pray deliberately for missionaries that
absolutely.
are in our sphere, or for people who are deliberately doing a form of mission of some kind. So let's say, Rachel Mason, I know she's been traveling to Philippines quite often, doing various things over there. I followed that on Facebook a little bit. When she's over there, why don't you actually make a deliberate point of saying to Rachel, what are the things that you need prayer for while you're overseas? She might say, we have, we're doing this kind of work, or early childhood education, or whatever it is. and we need these things to be prayed for, and pray for them deliberately every day. Not just here or there, but deliberately supporting a missionary or a person on missions in prayer. Prayer is a powerful tool of supporting people on mission. Let me tell you, it's powerful because the enemy does not want the word of God going out. And so missionaries face a lot of pressure, and pressure from the dark sides of the spiritual world. Let me tell you, they push back against the spreading of the gospel. So they need to be covered in prayer. It's not just people that are on short-term missions. Let's think about people in our world, in our church world, who are on long-term missions. People like Vince. He needs support in prayer deliberately. And that's a really excellent way to start. Another thing to do is that missionaries are often feel very isolated. Often feel isolated from their family, isolated from their friends, isolated from their home culture, because if they're living cross-culturally for a long period of time, they would feel very, very lonely. And this is something, Chanel, having lived overseas for a long period of time in Cambodia, in a rural-ish area called Kampong Cham, away from a lot of Western kind of influence, from her experience, I know that she felt quite lonely at periods of time.
Of course,
we can be people that encourage and contact missionaries and actually provide encouragement to people who are on the ground doing the work, and that is so good. That is exceptionally powerful. And then I think if you don't have much money, let me encourage you that God can make a way. Don't let that be the point that stops you from going on missions.
Yeah.
Not many missionaries have a lot of money. I'll put that out there flat. A lot of people that do a lot of missions don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Even if you're young, you can make a way, you can find a way to get on the mission field if God is calling you. So I've taken people overseas who have not had jobs, but God made a way for them. They didn't have parents that would support them through it, but going through, and looking, thinking creatively for themselves, they've been able to find ways to finance what God had put on their heart. And for some of those people have established ministries that are enduring. They have faith levels that are higher than anyone that I know, because they took a step of faith when they were young and followed the call of God when they were young. Don't let youth and money restrictions be the thing that stop you.
Great. Preach that. That's awesome. I had some mates who went on missions, and they got the money together by like washing people's cars after youth or after church, or they would like have run a sausage sizzle, and everyone would put in money, and they got themselves there. So if you work hard, I mean, you can get there 100%. That's great. What about, I guess this is kind of a personal experience sort of thing. What's something that you wish you knew, like when you were getting into missions? What's something that you wish you knew before you took the dive into it?
Yeah. It is a question that is
the big one.
It's a big one, because I think there's a lot of things that I wish I knew before getting into this whole world. But I think the biggest thing really is that I'm not the expert by any means when I go into another culture. So
That's great.
think about it this way. In places like Kenya, there are pastors who have been faithfully running churches for years upon years. Their prayer lives are just absolutely way beyond what mine has ever been. They see miracles happening week to week, more than I've ever seen in my whole ministry life.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
part of the wrong thinking that we have sometimes when we go on mission is to think, man, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to be like Billy Graham or something. You know, I'm going to get over there. I'm going to be like, they're going to hear me preach. It's going to be like nothing they've ever heard before. And then people are just going to be falling at the feet of Jesus,
over.
you know, because of how great I did. But here's the real thing is that people that I met when I've been on mission have been so theologically well versed, so prayerful, so faithful, so spirit filled. And me over there, what am I actually bringing? Well, there's a lot that you bring when you go on mission. Don't let other people's faithfulness or growth be something that intimidates you. But this is the actual core thing that I wish I knew when I was getting into missions. And the thing that's most transformative, I think, when you're on the missions field is it's not me. It's not me who's doing the work. It's not me who is convicting people of sin. It's not me who's saving people. It's all about Jesus. It's not about us. It's about being the person that's bringing whatever we can, wherever we need to bring support, whatever is helpful to a person. We're bringing that, but we're leaning in to other people. But Jesus is bringing the change. Jesus is bringing the change, not me.
Yeah.
So some of the things that have caused a lot of problems on the mission field are people thinking that they're way more...
but they're Jesus.
Yeah, it's not even that... Yeah, I don't think they mean to be, but, you know, there's a lot of talk. I'm trying to not go there. I'm going to go there. I'm just going to go there. A lot of talk at the moment about privilege, right? A lot of talk at the moment, especially around white privilege and Black Lives Matter, which is super important. But one of the things that happens when we go overseas, we go over there often with our privilege, and we think that we're way more important than what we are. Wow. We need to put people in the right order. We can't go over there thinking, I'm up here and these people are down here. No, we are on the same level. Yeah. When I was talking before about ministry, presence ministry, we need to understand that our world that we live in isn't better because it's different. Yeah. The West isn't better because it's different. There are things in Africa that are done far better than we do it in Australia, and vice versa. There are things that are done in Cambodia, for example, that are different to the way we do it in Australia, but it's not wrong, and in a lot of ways, it's a lot better. There is strength in learning from other cultures. There is strength in making sure that we place others not underneath ourselves, but above ourselves. So when we go on missions, you know, and that's what the Apostle Paul says, isn't it? Consider others higher than yourself. So when we go on missions, that's how we need to consider the people that we're working with above ourselves. Yeah. We need to consider ourselves as a servant, just as Jesus came to serve we need
So
to
good, man.
also consider ourselves a servant when we go overseas. I think that is an incredibly transformative thing when we get on the mission field.
Yeah.
Rather than going over there and saying, I'm going to go fix, I'm going to go over there and be the great, pillar of preaching. I'm going to be Billy Graham. Go overseas with the intention to serve, to come underneath people and
good,
say,
man.
what can I do? How can I
Yeah.
serve your church? How can I help your church? How can I be a part of what you're doing? What do you need? I think it starts with questions. We go over there often, like I went over to Kenya with an idea of what I wanted to do and came back realizing I needed to ask a lot more questions.
Yeah,
I need
really
to
good.
sit under people and say, what is it that you need? How can I help? What are the things that I can do to serve your church, to serve your nation, to serve what you are doing here?
I don't know whether Nate said it. I was a bit preoccupied before. But I think too, when you go on missions, the idea, I know for me, often would come into my head that we're trying to get churches there to look like our churches here. Like we want it to look the same.
Yeah.
Not just from a program kind of point of view, but, they've reached a good church when it looks this sort of way. But there's something really beautiful in diversity and in the difference between cultures. I think it would be such a shame to lose some of the things that are, specific to certain cultures and things that we could learn from, not necessarily bring back and use in our culture, but just to appreciate for what it is and to go in and when you're in a new environment, be able to enjoy the diversity that is amongst people in the church and the way that Jesus is moving in that particular culture, which might look so different to the way that, Jesus is moving in our culture over in the West. I think it's a big mistake to think that it's the goal is to make church look like Western church, that's the thing to reach or something. But learning from others, serving others, like Nathan said, is often a point where you can observe and see all the beautiful differences between people. So that's one thing. I don't even know what's been said, so I might
that's great. That's
reiterating
great.
something.
It's a great ad at the end. I love that. Really well said as well, both of you. So Scout's going to be smart. She's got smart parents.
Talking already,
what about
so.
this? What about she was really going for it before, huh? She's got some. She's going to be able to sing. She's going to be able to sing.
Oh, man, I could not. I was finding it so hard to concentrate. But anyway, I just.
I knew. I could see.
Baby.
I could see. I could see how hard you were. Like, I'm going to focus on this question because otherwise I'm going to leave. I could literally see it. I was exactly the same as that. But yeah.
Sorry,
look,
guys.
No. She's going to be able to sing. I want to be there. I want to be a part of whatever record label she signs with. I want part of it. She can sing. I'm just going to put it out. She's going to be able to sing.
Yeah.
But I guess we kind of...
I can't hit the notes she can hit.
neither. Nate can. But this is kind of the final sort of question here as we kind of close. But you can't, and you've essentially just answered it, Nate. But someone actually wrote a question and said, people might think missions are glamorous, but what is the true reality of it? And I think you just answered it by saying, we think the glamour is I'm allowed to say this because I've done this before. The glamour often is the fact that I got a really cute photo of me and the child in Vanuatu, of me holding them or holding their hand. And I was able to post that and everyone thinks I'm a really good person. And that's the glamorous side. But the true reality of it, like you said, is the fact that I'm actually there to serve, and that the reality is not, like you said, I think, and obviously feel free to add, I think the reality is you're a servant. You're not you're not there to become a savior. So I'm there to serve people and push them in front of me and help. I'm there to help. You know, would you say that's the truth of it all, even in our own nation, in our own backyard?
Yeah, largely yes. And look, I think sometimes, and I can speak from more of a long-term missions perspective. I know often missions trips, as you know, we'd often have are a couple of weeks long, and so it's easy to snap those pictures and then come home and everyone goes, yeah, you've done such a good job.
Yeah.
But from the other side of it, being over there, sometimes I think you can fall into doing those things and it's not so much for the glamour of it, but it's for the recognition, more from the point of not wanting to be forgotten and left off the map, because it can be really isolating. And so I think sometimes you know, you might find that they are the things that long-term missionaries post, and it's not for the same reasons that maybe a young person on a short-term missions trip might be taking. The motivation's actually totally different. So I would say that the glamour just depends what side of the you know, mission field you're on. Because I think sometimes just knowing that your family and your friends back home haven't just forgotten, oh, you've been removed for a number of years, you know, I don't even know what you're up to anymore. You know, you kind of jump on there to be still on the face of the planet, and you really do need the support, encouragement, prayers of other people. And sometimes,
absolutely,
you know, going, hey, look what's going on over here, might just encourage someone to chime in and say, hey, it's great, where are you, what are you doing, where's this photo taken, you know, that kind of thing. So it might be off topic, I'm not sure, but maybe one of the best things that you can do is support missionaries that you know of by connecting with them. Make sure they don't feel like they're just left in space doing this on their own. It's really hard, it can be really isolating, and particularly when they have to come back home, they've got nothing left to come back to because people have forgotten where they're up to and what they're doing. So, and they've got no one to relate to. So stay connected. You got
a good husband. He has listened to you when you've spoken about your experience. That's for sure. Nathan, well done. Well done, Nathan. Well done.
I would add that missions is not glamorous.
Yeah, I don't know what mission people are going on.
Yeah, people think
not
that
the ones I've been on.
It's glamorous, then you're doing it wrong. Listen, you're doing it in a way that separates yourself from the people that you're trying to reach and serve.
And that's not to say the work you're doing can't be absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's not.
It's messy. It's
glamorous.
Dirty, it's
beautiful in its messiness. I mean, the tummy bugs I have caught when I've been overseas have been horrendous. The toilets that I've used have been awful. I've had to eat matoke before. If you don't know what that is, it is not fantastic.
Don't spoil the surprise for someone who may end up getting to enjoy.
I'll never eat it.
Very delight.
When I met Chanel's dad for the first time, I was in Cambodia, and he put food in front of me, and I didn't know what it was, and it was frogs. And I mean, there's stuff that I've put in my mouth and then had to eat. You know, it's not glamorous. It's messy. It's painful. You experience things that break your heart.
And it's very humbling too. I think you realize how much you need of yourself to put aside so that you can, like even using food for an example, you know, there might be things that you would never in your life touch, but you see how this person has toiled and slaved away over the meal that they've prepared. They can't even afford to give you, but they give you the largest portion and the best cuts of the meat and all of this stuff. And you go, I'll put aside all of the things that I would usually do in this scenario, and I'm just so grateful. I think, missions has a way of really, once it gets a hold of your heart, you can't get rid of it. So if you head down that road, be prepared. It's probably going to be with you for the rest of your life. So
huge. Awesome. Well, as far as like questions that I kind of have for you guys and sent you guys, that's pretty much it. Sorry to end it so soon after you've just joined back with us, Chanel. But thank you. Thanks for what you added at the end, and thanks for just being a part of tonight, guys. Really appreciate jumping on
My
with us
pleasure.
and sharing with our guys. I'm gonna, I mean, if it's all right with you guys, I'm gonna chuck this up on our YouTube channel so that people can watch it at any time whenever they want, and we'll chuck it up in our story so that guys can know when it's up there and give it a watch. But thanks heaps for jumping on with me tonight, being a part of Tuesday Chats, our second last edition. I love you guys, and I'm just pumped that you were able to spare some time, even though you're hanging out with friends, to have a chat with me.
That's
so
all right. It's our
I appreciate
pleasure.
that. No worries. Thanks so
Dave.
much for joining
Love
me
you,
tonight. I'll
Dave.
see you around. See you guys.
See you, man.
Bye.